I immediately regret
Hello.
my decision.
Hello there. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Playback podcast, a podcast all about the past. My name is Adam and I'm joined by David.
Hello there.
So, if you are coming from a YouTube channel, which I'm assuming at least one of you are, I thank you for tuning in and listening to our ramblings. So, you're probably wondering, you're probably sitting there listening to this podcast right now. You're like, who are these two feckers? One
Especially
lad
me.
called Adam. Yeah. I have 127 subscribers on YouTube, so I'm quite famous now. So you're probably thinking to yourself, who was Adam and who was David? Well, let me tell you a story. We're both Irish lads. I'm 22. David, are you 22?
I am 22.
David is 22 as well. And we both love games. We both like music and movies and TV shows, but games are the thing that drive us. Games are the things that get us out of bed in the morning. Would you agree, David?
I would.
Today, we're going to talk about games that define us.
Pregnant pause for the win. Games are good stuff. So it's good
They
to
are.
talk about them. So
It
that's what we're
is.
doing now. In the most awkward introduction in podcast history. But that's
Look,
all part of the
look.
podcast. It's
Yeah,
all
it's
part of
all.
the podcast.
Yes, it is indeed. So, by games that define us, we don't mean our top five favorite games of all time. I'm sure at some stage we'll do something like that. But right now, it's just games that, say, have a nice memory attached to them, or at that time and place when we played them, it really
Have a lot
cemented
of
itself
meaning.
in our head. Yeah, yeah, there you go, David. Summed it up perfectly. Has a lot of meaning. We decided we'd pick five. Now, whether or not we're actually going to get to talking to five will be another thing altogether, because as much as we'd like to sit here and talk for 3 hours, I don't think many people would want to sit here and listen to us
I don't know if
for
I'd
more
even
than.
want to listen to us for 3 hours.
Yeah, yeah, fair, yeah. I mean, we are two geniuses that know a lot about games and have played a lot of games. So maybe people will enjoy listening to us, but I'm guessing we'll find out when this thing gets uploaded on whatever we can
Stitcher or
upload it
some
on.
other
Yeah,
weird
we'll
place.
upload it on your Zune MP3 if we can.
Yeah.
Whatever makes it easy for you to listen to. So, again, we chose a list of five. Whether or not we're going to talk about them is another story altogether. So, David, do you want
Well,
to pick your first game there that
yeah,
you
no.
want to talk about?
So I thought I'd start off with a nice mainstream game, and
Yeah,
that is Resident Evil 4 for
fair enough. Yeah,
the GameCube, the Wii, the Switch, the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3, the PlayStation 4, iOS,
PC.
PC, Xbox,
Uh,
Xbox 360, oh, but Xbox 360, Xbox One, pretty much everything. There's no real
yeah,
excuse not to have played at this rate, but Resident Evil 4 is obviously very famous, very iconic game. It's a game, one of those games that I think a lot of people are know of, at least have heard of. You're bound to have heard of it at this rate. It's a seismic sort of shift in the industry and just the development of games. I think uh, Ben Croshaw, Yahtzee has said, or he did a video about it, and he was saying that it's sort of the harbinger of the next gen, because it was actually originally a GameCube game, part of the Capcom 5, which they completely reneged on, where they were going to make 5 exclusive games for the GameCube. But obviously the GameCube is 6th gen. It's a 6th gen game, but it doesn't feel like it. It's really it sort of has like this premonition of where games were going to go. It's very brown, very gray,
yeah.
which is fine
Very
for that.
gritty.
Yeah, it's very gritty. It's very there's motion capture. It's a little, obviously, it's a bit a bit try talking about it at this stage, but it's more actiony. Took the series. The previous Resident Evils were survival horror, tank controls. Although Resident Evil 4 also still has tank controls. In fact, they didn't. The only thing they changed was the camera. Instead of fixed cameras, it's now from behind the character. Yeah, I should say as well. You play as Leon Kennedy, obviously. Again, it's this game is it's such a masterpiece. It's such a tour de force in the industry. It's kind of, you can't even begin to. to even, imagine how you can't. How do you even explain this? How do you even discuss this? It's such a force.
Yeah,
I could just say there's so much about this that's already been said. So I'm not going to add too much to the conversation. The thing I'll say, and to just so we don't stay too long on each game, if we were going to get through 10 games, let's see, is the fact that if you play that game, it's you're never doing the same thing for too long, which it
yeah.
has in common with another game that I'll talk about later. But the pacing, I think it has the best pacing of any game I've ever played. There's rooms like you go through a village, you go onto a swamp lakeland, you go into a medieval castle, you go to an industrial island, factories. It's it never gets old. There's always something new happening. There's
Yeah.
new enemies, all sorts. Leon is hysterical in it. It's very campy, but it's also kind of scary and creepy. There's different enemy types that really can freak you out, and it's its most maybe infamous, what would you call it, legacy is what it did to the series, to the Resident Evil series, but specifically the two games following after. I've never actually played Resident Evil 6, uh, so
I wouldn't play Resident Evil 6 because Resident Evil 5 is shit.
but the thing about Resident Evil 5, if you happened to be a person, and I'm sure there are people out there like this who
I am
only
I
played,
am a person.
yeah, exactly, who are a human being. I
Yeah,
presume there are people out there who maybe only played, Resident Evil 5 or Resident Evil 6 and didn't like them as much. I liked Resident Evil 5 at the time, and I think I still do. But the more you play, the more you realize little things, especially when you play the higher difficulties. It really starts to
yeah.
get to you. So if you've only played those games and you didn't like them or hated them, and you look at 4 and think it's more of the same, you're doing
Nope.
yourself a massive,
Yep.
massive, massive disservice by not playing it. That's all I can
And play
say.
it on the Wii.
I played on the Wii because
The Wii version
the Wii
is
version,
it's great.
the Wii mode
Now
made
the
it
textures
even
are
better.
pretty the texture and resolution are pretty muddy because you can't really see things. But other than that, it's great and you can actually aim, which for me as
A player,
a scared a scaredy cat as people might say, uh, for me it made it a lot easier because them games make it's scarier in them games when you don't have full control of yourself. But with a Wiimote, you do, and you can aim pretty well.
yeah.
So, do you have any memories tied to this game? Like, why? Like, explain to me why it's something that defines your kind of gaming self.
Well, as I said, this is sort of embarrassing for me. The first Resident Evil game I ever played was Resident Evil 5,
Yeah,
which when I was, like I said, I'm 22, so I was only maybe 13 or 14 when I played that. And uh, I was really excited to play, because I was very big into YouTube, and people talked about it, Resident Evil 4, and how much of a big deal it was. And I always remember the cover art to 4, the icon, the European cover, anyways, the iconic sort of you're in the forest, and the Wii cover
yeah,
where
the
you see
red.
the man with the guy with the chainsaw, and if you haven't seen you should look. It's very haunting imagery. To sound super pretentious, and uh, it's a I'd heard of, and I went back to I ordered on the I would have only been 14 or 15. I ordered the PS2 version, and I played it. And it was so. I don't think I've ever played a game before or since where you realize as you're going through it how special this game is and how it really all the pieces click. There's games where that's happened or come close to that, but I think in Resident Evil 4 there's something where it's just everything just works, as Todd Howard would say, it just works.
Mm,
And incidentally as well, and this is a very weird thing, it was a very personal thing, the Serenity theme music that plays when you're in the merchant
yeah,
the save rooms, the sanctuary areas, might be my favorite piece of video game music or music I've ever heard. It's not traditional music, it's more serene, it's more cerebral, it's very calming, it's very nostalgic. It makes me feel kind of sad, but it's a very, which is, I suppose that's what nostalgia is, but
yeah, yeah. the true definition of nostalgia. You
Yeah.
know, since we're two geniuses, we actually
Yeah,
know what that
painful
means.
memories or sorrow
Yeah,
memories. So, I think it's just that sort of feeling you got when I played it, and I would have been very impressionable at that age, when you realize you're playing something special. And that doesn't happen with a lot of games, especially at that age. You sort of, I think,
yeah,
even at that age, you do have some sort of discerning taste about what
mm,
is good and what isn't, or not as good. Because I don't want to be, don't
yeah.
want to be mean, spirited.
David, it's okay. Some games are shit.
Some games are. And with that, I don't want to keep hogging all the time
Yeah,
talking about one game when we have potentially nine more to get through. So I will pass the ball over to your side of the court, Adam.
yes. So I know I said at the start this isn't our top five list of games ever, but I have to talk about The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Now, this is my favorite game ever made, without a shadow of a doubt. It always has been ever since I was God knows what age. I just loved it. And no matter how many other games I play, nothing has ever even come close to dethroning it. So, as I said, this was the reason why it holds such a it has a nice little compartment in my heart. I have a nice little little Majora's Mask hanging on
Majora's
the
Mask
wall inside.
side,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
big
everything.
heart.
So it was the first game I can ever remember playing. So back in the day when I was a kid, my dad my dad and his brother bought an N64, but my brother who was or my uncle who was my dad's brother was probably he could be 10, 12 years younger than my dad. So by the time my dad moved out, he was still living at home. So the Nintendo 64 stayed in my nana and granddad's house. So every Friday after work, my dad would go get the Nintendo 64 and he'd come home and me, him, and my brother would play all sorts of games. But the one that I can remember the most is Majora's Mask. And I think it just holds such a special place in my heart. Obviously, the game is great. Everything about the game, I could sit here and talk about it for 3 hours if I wanted to.
I just need to jump in for
Yeah,
a
yeah,
second
go
here.
on.
I I've played Majora about halfway through to like the second dungeon.
Bastard.
I know, yeah. It's a very very special game. It's not on my list, sadly. Ocarina almost made it on, but spoiler
And
alert,
all
really
you
didn't.
revisionist
I know.
bastards saying
Um,
Majora's Mask is great now. I was there. I might have only been two or three when I first saw it, but I was there
I
and
didn't
I
play
thought it was
Zelda games
great.
till 2016, so I've
Yeah.
no guilt over that.
So
That's all I'm saying.
so going on from that with Majora's Mask, it was like every Easter break, me and my brother would play it, and we'd always beat it. Now, by play it, I mean I'd sit down and read the manual while he played it because I'm the younger brother. So I actually probably let me think. I probably only beat that game for the first time ever when I was maybe 8. Like actually beat it myself. Every single other time before that was me reading the manual for my brother. It would basically be us getting up on a Saturday morning and we go downstairs and I'd sit in one chair reading the book and he'd just sit there and play the game. Looking back, it was a bit unfair, but back in the day, I loved it. So that's definitely one of that's the main reason why it's one of the why it's just such a special game. And then for my I don't know what year it was,
For
but
which,
my girlfriend bought me Majora's Mask on
oh,
the 3DS because I never had it on the 3DS before that for my birthday. And I played through it. And even that was only 3, 4 years ago. And that game is still amazing.
by
And
the way,
playing
the
it
3DS version is probably the version to play, just because of the.
100%.
Well,
It's
I sorry, I again, I'm sorry for jumping in, but I've heard that some people are kind of torn on which version to play because apparently the 3DS one isn't the true experience. Or again, I haven't played the N64 version.
yeah, it does add a few little bits that make the game easier.
Yeah,
But the main feeling of just kind of impending doom is still in it. It just makes it slightly more easier and manageable. So from a from an accessibility point, it's better. But if you're going for a pure playthrough, then no, it's not. But the final thing I want to say about this is, so I played it on the 3DS. I loved it. I got all the masks, everything, and then my girlfriend played it, and I always so Zelda games are usually very easy, but my girlfriend decided that she wasn't going to collect that many hearts and she wasn't going to get the fairy sword and all these things. So
Classic
when she went
beginner
to fight,
mistake.
yeah, yeah, when she went to fight Majora, I think she had like 6 hearts maybe, and she couldn't beat him. And I was like, how couldn't you beat him? So then we sat there for like probably an hour trying to beat him, and it was honestly like playing a Dark Souls boss. We had the normal shield, the normal sword, and about 6 or 8 hearts. But eventually we beat him, and I don't know, that's just another great memory of the game that just makes it even all the better. So
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't really
it's
like
with
go
some of
go on.
these games when you're like 2 or 3 years old. It's more you're not. There's not a huge amount of critical analysis going on about
Yeah, it's
yeah,
just the
the
feeling that you get.
intricacies of the memory of playing the game.
Yeah,
It's
it's just
it's
all
the
the music.
experience and
Yeah,
the and the music. Oh my
the
god, it's incredible.
oh no,
Very
that
dark
game.
and twisted game. Again, these are games we're probably starting off with games that everyone's heard of. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, all my games on my list are
same with
all games.
mine are all ones. Well, one in particular. Well, no, we'll get to that. But
Yeah, they're all games that are kind of mainstream and everyone's played, but they
yeah,
just
or at least they've
they are
heard of
very
them
important.
or aware of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with Majora's Mask out of the way, David, your second game.
Well, thank you very much. I will do you a solid and do the same thing where this next game is actually probably my favorite game of all time, and that is Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. Very specifically the PS1
I
version.
thought you were going somewhere else.
Oh no. Oh, subvert your expectations.
Go
Specifically the
on.
PS1 version. Very specifically, I need to say that. Because Crash Bandicoot, as we know, PlayStation 1 series of platformers, rivaling Mario, outselling Mario, and my beloved Sonic as well. Um,
Yep.
Crash 3 Warped, I think, wasn't the first game I ever played, but the first game I played that really you stuck with, Like I played a bunch of other games before, but
Yeah.
you really get into it, you really think about it, you really work through it. And a it's a platformer, as I said, 3D platformer. It's more the Crash style of gameplay is for a long time people used to dunk on it because every childhood game everyone has to dunk on all my childhood games for some reason because I had the audacity of not being a Nintendo kid.
Because
Um,
you had the audacity of being a
Sega,
Sonic fanboy.
yeah, yeah. So w- it's they're more akin to the Mario games if they were literally brought into 3D as opposed to the way that Mario games actually went to 3D.
Yeah.
They're more linear, more lots of collectibles. It's a very I'll be the first to admit that the third game in the series is there's a lot of gimmicks or quote unquote gimmicks. There's a lot of vehicle level stuff that you wouldn't find that is sort of endemic to the platform 3D platformer genre. Where
Yeah.
by the third game they usually are running out of ideas and they're doing all sorts of weird stuff. I understand the it's sort of like with Resident Evil 4 where some of these games are so essential to me and so core to my being to be weird about it that I can't even put it into words what it's like. It's your childhood game, That's all I can say
Yeah.
about it. It's very
No,
it's
I've
great.
yeah.
It's a game I replay at least once a year, sometimes twice a year,
Yeah,
and
yeah, I've the same memories with Crash 3. It was just one of them games that I had and I play constantly.
I should say as well what I was saying there, specifically the PS1 version, because that's the version I played when I was young, but also the remasters that came out, the Insane Trilogy, great. I really liked them, but when you play Crash 3 on the remaster, it's kind of evident that they sort of ran out of time. It's the glitchiest out of the three. Obviously, the infamous pillbox, where Crash in the original series, Crash his hitbox was a rectangle, or like a uh, not a cube. What's the like it was straight edge.
Cuboid.
Yeah, straight edges. Whereas in the remake, it's a pill shape. So there's little niggling things in the remake that don't quite match up to the original. And visually, Crash 3 is just stunning, and was stunning even back
Yeah.
at the time. So it's it's quite the game. That's all I can say. And very easy to get. Well, you can get it on PS1, PS3. You can get the
Play it on your Vita.
you play it on your Vita, your beloved Vita. It's and you can get it with the remaster. The remaster's great, but you know, you always got to go with the OG. So
I would not agree with that, but that's another topic for
a topic
another
for
day.
another day, a battle for
Yes.
another bit field.
Okay. So is that all your thoughts on Crash 3?
Oh, we could do a whole episode gushing about Crash 3. So
Don't worry, we will
yeah,
at
so
some stage.
we'll I think I'll park that for now and let you take on your second game.
Okay. So my second game, and these my first two games here were two that the second that I thought about this list, they were the two that were instantly on it. The other number three, four, five were maybes, and I had a list of probably five others that could have made it in, but this one, this one was there from the start, and that is Ratchet and Clank on the PlayStation 2. So this game again, it's just I'm assuming it's the same with Crash 3, where it was just one of them kid games that
Just that
everyone
game you
played,
play,
and
yeah.
yeah, and everybody loved it. And I remember in school, my friends were telling me about this game. They never told me the title, but they were talking about this game of this like man that had a robot, and you have guns and you shoot things. And I was like, wow, that game sounds amazing. But I pictured Ratchet as a man and not a furry creature. So this was a pretty regular, well, not a regular occurrence because Final Fantasy games only came out so often. So my dad used to love Final Fantasy. So whenever a new Final Fantasy game would come out, he'd go out and buy it. But he'd always try and sneak out and buy it because he knows that if I see him buying a game, then he'll have to buy me a game. And considering I already got enough games that like across the year, I'm sure he was probably just fed up of buying me games. But one night my dad came home from work and he was like, "Oh," he was talking to my brother about Final Fantasy. I think it could have been, it was 10 or 10-2. I don't know. I don't know the release dates of either. So
I think it was like
10 or 10-2.
2001
Yeah,
or something.
yeah, something like that. So then he was trying to sneak over to GameStop to get it, but obviously, me being the little crafty little devil,
Crafty little
I
minx.
snuffed him out. Yeah, and I got across, and I got across that you have to buy me a game. So we went over to GameStop, and I saw this box art in GameStop, and I just looked at it. I was like, wow, that looks cool. So I decided I'd buy that. And this was probably like if my dad got home from work, it was probably 5:30 or 6 o'clock. So by the time I got home, like this was 2000 and early 2000s, so like I would have had a really early bedtime. So by the time I got home, my mom told me I could play a level or two, and I just sat there and I played the first level. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then I got onto the level, the level with the trees in it and the lumberjack robots.
Yeah, I think they do. I haven't
Yeah,
played it nearly as much as you have. I never
yeah,
actually
but
did that.
I got onto that level, and I remember just looking at the graphics. I was like, "Oh my god, these are the best graphics I've ever seen." And it was just everything about the game, but I just absolutely loved. Obviously, I could go on and talk about the game, but to be honest, I'm trying to more talk about the memories of them. So it was just, I just that's it. That's just the game. It's like it spawned one of the best and probably one of the most successful gaming franchises in the world, just
It
because
yeah,
it was
it's
some furry thing and a robot, and then
furry in a
all
robot.
the
Yeah.
guns and all the just everything.
That sort of
The
insomniac
characters,
sort of snark and
yeah,
charm to it. It's a
and
great.
like
The one
just
thing, yeah, I'm saying this as someone who didn't play. I played the original when I was small, but I didn't. I only got like halfway, and it never clicked with me until I played Retro Gladiator, which is an extraordinary.
yeah, that is the best one.
It's the best game, or Ratchet Deadlocked, as the Americans would call
Yeah,
it.
yeah. We never got the up your arsenal or anything. We
Yeah,
never
I
got
know. Yeah,
the cool
bunch of
titles. We just got Ratchet 1, 2,
Ratchet
and 3.
1, 2, and 3. Yeah, it's a there's a very interesting dynamic between Ratchet and Clank because
Yeah,
Ratchet's kind of a jackass. You know, he's kind of
yeah, because they both hate each other, and
yeah.
then
It's kind of very toxic, and he's kind of a
yeah,
douche, and he's kind of into weird sleazy stuff. It's really cool.
yeah, and in the
It's who he
remake they
all
fucked
wants to
that up,
be.
but
Yeah, I did like the remake though. I actually prefer the remake.
Yeah, no, the remake, the remake's unbelievable. But just, I
Gotta
think the
stick with
thing
the
that
OG, hey?
yeah,
Uh,
I think the thing that got me, that like was the most memorable, was just the kind of charm and the humor of the game. So
yeah.
like just little things like Skid McMarks being a character. Like I remember hearing that, I was like, oh, Skid Marks. And it's all just stupid little jokes like that. And it's like these are fully grown men working on games, but
And it's
they
it's
just
a it's a very as weird as it sounds, it's like a very economic, very like it's a very biting sort of critique of capital, like that sort of corporate
yeah, yeah.
capitalism with all the have to buy everything, all the again I've played it in a very long while, so but everything is up
Well,
for sale.
once you played
Everyone's
one Ratchet game, you've played them all.
yeah. So
But
everything is for
if she
sale.
ain't broke, don't fix it. So that was my second game. We're actually making good time here, so we
Yeah,
might
good.
actually make 5 games each.
Yeah, I think
So
we could. Yeah, it's
yeah,
because
what's
well, we'll keep the train going with. I'll jump into something more quote unquote serious. This is a game, of course, again that needs no introduction. And that is a game called Dark Souls. Dark Souls is my college game. When I was in the first year of college, yeah, guys,
yeah,
they're golden. I know. When I was in first year of college, or when we were in first year of college,
yeah.
we
Me and David both done economics, politics, and law in Dublin City University. So just in case you wanted to know that,
just in case you wanted to know, yeah, and
let the audience in on
desperately looking
everything.
on LinkedIn to see what we did.
Yeah, yeah.
We've
Go on.
hit it big. Dark Souls is a action role playing game, of course. Again, feels really weird explaining all these extremely common and well known games to people who clearly already know. So, or more like most likely know.
Well, I should hope that everyone listening to this actually enjoys
Just
playing games, and because then
yeah,
you're just kind of wasting your time.
just gonna say I'm gonna take a swig. We'll probably just cut this part out. I just need to because I can already hear the.
No, we're not cutting it out. Take that swig. And they were really, really exaggerated. Yeah, there we go.
There you go. This is
Finest
true. This
ASMR
is
podcast.
true professionalism. It's like you're
Yes. Go
listening
on.
to the symphony orchestra. Okay, so Dark Souls was my college game. We had a lot of free time in college. Missed
Yep.
those days. So I would just play Dark Souls as you do in college, and I played Demon Souls first, which is also a great game. But Demon Souls is Dark Souls is longer. There's more depth to it. There's more stuff in it. It's just generally altogether more refined. It's the classic, video game sequel. It's the Sonic 2 to the Sonic 1. It's the Crash 3 to the Crash 1. It's the, Mario 3, all that sort of stuff. It's a monster of a game. It's obviously very famous for its difficulty, but I went through two stages with this game. With as I do with all the Souls games. Like I said, I started with Demon Souls, played it up to the second level, the Tower Knight, and I couldn't beat him. So I was like, I'm done with this, and I put it away. Same thing happened with Dark Souls. Got up to
Yep.
around I'd say around 20 hours in, and I said, okay, I get this. I'm like, I'm done. I came back a while later, and thought I'd give it another go, and it clicked. I got through it. You stick through it. It's like a meat grinder, but
Yep.
you eventually learn
That's
to love the
exactly what
pain.
happened to me.
Yeah, and then you conquer the game. And in fact, I'm proud to say I have the platinum for it. I need to go back and get the
Yeah,
platinum for
with
it.
your Excel spreadsheet.
My Excel spreadsheet, which I have to admit I didn't make. I always joke that I made an Excel spreadsheet to get the trophy. I actually got that on like pstrophies.org or wherever.
Yeah, David is a trophy hunter.
I'm a trophy hunter, yeah.
That's another thing. I've 19 platinums, and I enjoy getting the odd trophy, and when I feel like it I get a platinum. But David is a complete crazed
Lunatic.
lunatic of a trophy
Can I just
hunter.
say, February or January of this year, I had 64 platinums. I currently now have 82 platinums.
Nerd.
That's like it's an addiction. But once I hit 100, I'll stop.
No, it's not gonna stop.
It will see, yeah. But
It just won't. Once I hit 100, I just want this to be my 5,000 trophy. No, seriously, no, look. I just want this game to be my 100 platinum and then I'll stop. No, never gonna happen.
Well, I might as well embrace it at this stage. At least I'm not going for. Oh, no, we're getting off. We're
Yeah, I am Mayo
yeah.
platinums. Look,
We could do
look,
a
as
whole
they said,
again.
look, as they used to say back in the day, this is a conversational podcast.
That's true.
Yeah,
It's the nature, the organic nature of conversation.
yep.
Yeah.
Too professional. Look, if you want professional thoughts on games, we will give you them here. But if you want nice and edited, you could go check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/random string of numbers, because I haven't set up a URL. But the channel name is Adzi Gaming, ADZI space gaming. So
You
I
saw
do
your opportunity
retrospectives and
for
reviews.
branding and YouTube.
Shameless plug. Well, it's not branding considering it's
Your
our
yeah,
podcast.
yeah. That's true.
So
But how
Dark
did we get away
Souls,
from Dark Souls?
back on
Jesus,
track. Dark
holy moly!
Souls.
It's like, um, well, again, like you can't really see the last two games are the ones that are going to be real stuff to say. But Dark Souls is well, it's as everyone knows, it's incredible. But it's a
It
very
spawned
fair
the
game
genre.
for 90% of the time. Definitely, yeah, it's has a lot of parallels to the Castlevania series, which I adore. I love the Castlevania series.
There's plenty of
Uh,
Celtic mythology as well.
Absolutely, I love that. Aishamai. It's a obviously the memory being the college game, and I've since realized how influential it really has been, and how it took a lot of the Castlevania tropes and sort of ascended it to the next level. It's funny as well. I've played it so many times now. You can actually, if I do say so myself, I can actually beat the shite out of that game. I just destroy it when I play it now because I'm so good. But
Yeah, I'm the same with Dark Souls 2.
yeah,
Because Dark
once you
Souls 2 is the
and
best Dark Souls game.
all you can do is very loudly exhale into the mic.
Look, someday we'll do Dark Souls 1 versus Dark Souls 2 podcast. We'll present our argument. Look, the Majula team in Dark Souls 2 is the best piece of music in any Dark Souls game. Okay.
Someone's probably getting turned on by that. So, okay, that's us. One more time.
Oh.
All right, I'll leave Dark Souls with that so that we can keep our
Yeah,
punctuality
we
train
can keep
going.
some
Some
straight and narrow path going somewhere. Okay, so I'm guessing I'm taking. Oh, do you know what? I'm taking the mic now. Um, See, my next two games, I don't know which one I want to talk about, to be honest. But I think I'm going to talk about the game that kind of brought co-op into my mind. Obviously, I had GoldenEye back in the day. I played a bit of co-op, but the N60. I wasn't really a big fan of GoldenEye back in the day. So that's another thing for another story, or another story for another day, should I say?
yeah,
So the next game is Lord of the Rings: Return of the King on the PS2. So Lord of the Rings, obviously, massive franchise. Easily
which
one of
by the
my
way, series I've
never.
never watched or read.
Yeah, all right.
I
Yeah,
will
get out of
someday.
here. All
But,
right. Yeah. Welcome to the Adam podcast.
so I'm practically going to be silent for this. So
Yeah.
I'll leave the floor to
So
you.
so so the Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers on the PS2. That game is also very good. They're very similar games. I'm assuming they're made by the same developer, EA, something to do with EA. So both of them games are great. And Lord of the Rings: Two Towers, I always thought was co-op, but it isn't. I thought I had a memory of playing a co-op, but it wasn't. So then we go on to Lord of the Rings: Return of the King, and this is kind of, I'd say this is the first game that I can remember playing properly co-op, just constantly. And I'd usually play it with my cousin Ada, which is a bit of a meme. If anyone
Get used to
that
hearing
knows
that,
that
guys.
meme,
Get used to it.
yeah. If anyone knows that meme, if anyone here is listening that knows it, then yeah, haha, you're so funny.
Probably
So
laughing at your ass off right now.
yeah, so it's just a game that I have a very fond memory of playing with my cousin Ada, and me and him are very good friends. And my cousin Ada, so we'd play them games. We'd play Lord of the Rings, and obviously I love Lord of the Rings. Well, not obviously because no one actually knows. So I've read all the books. Well, I've read The Hobbit and the trilogy. I tried to read the Silmarillion, but it's it's a bit
It's
wishy
a bit,
washy.
yeah, it's a little. I've just out myself as a complete liar since I'm about to comment on this, but I've looked at bits of it and I'm like, hmm,
Yeah,
okay.
I will read it. I will get back to it. But so the game itself is just it's a licensed game, but it's a really well made licensed game, and they have just little transitions where it goes from full motion video from the actual movies, and then they turn into their 3D PlayStation 2 models. That looks a bit weird, but it was pretty cool for the time. So yeah, I think Lord of the Rings just kind of Return of the King just kind of opened my eyes to co-op and what co-op could be. And I have countless memories of playing that game co-op. So
Was there? I just need to ask. Was there? Is this the same? Was there one that was online and then they turned the servers off and now you can't play it anymore? A Lord of the Rings game.
well, the only two Lord of the Rings, no, the three Lord of the Rings online games I can think of are Lord of the Rings Conquest, which was made by Pandemic. They're the guys who
Oh,
make the original
Battlefront
Battlefronts.
and Saboteur and
Yeah,
all.
so it's basically Battlefront, but with Lord of the Rings characters, and you know you have a mage, a rogue, an archer, and a warrior, and they're like the classes.
Pretty cool.
So I'm assuming the servers are down for that since Pandemic where
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely one that again because I'm a
yeah,
trophy guy. There's one
and
that's
then
you can't. Yeah.
the next one the next one would probably be the MOBA.
Right.
I'm assuming the servers are down for that.
Actually, don't.
And
We're
then
to
if
educate
you're
our
talking about
audience. I'm just gonna.
oh
I'll Google it and just to
yeah,
you can. Sorry if you want.
I'll just fill the air.
You just feel the area. Dead air is a crime.
Yes. So yeah, Lord of the Rings, great franchise. Return of the King was a very good game.
Jeez, you call that fill in the air? Was it 2 seconds? Jesus.
Pregnant pause.
Not
No.
the world typist here. Hang on. Lord of the Rings on. Who cares? Um.
Yeah, no, because I think the MMO is still up. Lord of
Yeah.
the Rings Conquest servers are definitely down. I'm assuming the MOBAs are down as well, so they're the only three online games. But there's not really much more to say about Lord of the Rings Return of the King, other than it's a great co-op game that I have great memories of playing with my cousin Ado. So we're actually making good time still.
Yeah. So only
So
two left for
David,
me.
I'll hand you over to
Right.
your
Fourth game.
no. Oh, your fourth game. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, grand.
Grand.
I can
So.
hear my voice going already.
Ugh. So wait till you get to the four. Okay, we're good. Okay. Now this game is the only one out of the five. That's very nice. Love that. The only one out of the five that's probably going to get raised eyebrows.
Oh, here we go.
So here we go. The fourth game is Sonic or Sonic R. I'll say or because I'm Irish. So Sonic R.
Go on.
You
Sorry.
just. Do you know what? Let's just skip it. Okay. No.
No, 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 no. Go on.
No. Sonic or is
I
it's a
joke.
race. It's a Sonic game. And I really like the Sonic
Yes.
series, which is ironic because it's a spin-off game. Um, the R stands for racing. So Sonic R originally was on the Saturn, the Sega Saturn, and it was made by Traveller's Tales, who later went on
Very
to
interesting.
they made Sonic 3D Blast, and they went on to make I
Toy
don't have to make
Story 2.
the Toy Story 2, and they made the Lego games, and they're a very prolific developer. Um, so they also made the Crash games later on the PS2. So or
Wait, which
Twinsanity.
ones did they make?
They made Twinsanity.
Uh,
Uh,
then who
uh,
made
oh, Eurocom made Wrath of Cortex, I think.
ah?
So
Geez, like we finished each other's.
I know, yeah. Well, we've been
You
keeping
didn't
our
finish
marriage
my
secret for
sentence.
7 months. Yeah, Eurocom also made some other. They made another game that was really I don't know. So Sonic R was originally on the Saturn. We never played it on the Saturn. We played it on the PC, of all places. Um, Sonic R is quite. I love that I alternate between R and R constantly as well. Sonic R is a there's it's very memed, very memed.
as the
Like
whole Sonic franchise
as the
is.
whole Sonic franchise is, but this is on like another level of memeness. The soundtrack, which you either love or hate. You can just listen to "Can You Feel the Sunshine," which is the song of the first race course, and you'll know within 30 seconds if it's a soundtrack that you like or not. You're either going to love it or think it's the worst thing ever. I personally think it's fantabulous. That's but uh, this is going to sound weird. The gameplay is not really the big important deal here. It's not actually a very long game. You can beat the game in like 25 minutes, and you can do a completionist run like 80 minutes. I more This is the one game on the list that's very strong with the nostalgia and the memories. This is the one that has the most of a story attached to it. When I was small, the first two Sonic games I ever played was Sonic One and Sonic R, and there was a very long gap after that, and then I played Shadow the Hedgehog. So it's a very strange way to get into the series. And I watched like three of the TV shows. So I was very used to this idea that there were multiple Sonics and different versions of Sonics, which is why I never throw a tantrum like a lot of the other fans do whenever say you do something new. Although no, I just can't do it anymore. Um, so Sonic Or is a 3D Sonic game. Came out in 1997 originally. It was the first 3D Sonic game ever. The Sonic Adventure came out in 1998 and 1999 in the West, which is the actual first mainline 3D Sonic game. But Sonic Or is technically the very first 3D Sonic game, and that came out, if I have my facts right. And there's something about the that sort of very polygonal, sort of early 3D style. I think it suits the Sonic series so well because even back in the old 2D games, if you look at Green Hill Zone, they have the weird, very triangular and squarey
Yeah,
sort of. It's like they were planning for this, and it has a very retro nostalgic aesthetic that I really, even when I was small, I used to love. And the sound effects, it's such a weird sort of warm feeling when you play it. It's a like the as weird as it sounds, because again, the gameplay isn't. I'll be the first to admit, as far as racing games go, it's nowhere near as bad as everyone's like as some people say. But it's this is more on the lines of the style of the game over the substance of the game. And when we played it, we this is the funny story that we had where we didn't know who Knuckles was. We just called him the red guy or the red fella. Um,
the red fecker.
the red fella, and with his dreadlocks. Um, and when we watched Sonic X when it came out, my brother and I remember we saw the intro to it, and we would only been like 5 or 6, and we saw Knuckles in the intro, and we're like, "Oh, there he is!" Like we were like, "Oh, we're gonna find out about this weirdo." So as
the
it's
red
such a
fella.
the red fella's here finally. Uh, so it's such a weird, wacky sort of what's the word? Wacky sort of story, and it's such a small scale, sort of very small sort of origin story for to get into a series. It's not like a grand epic, like, oh, I was there waiting constantly for. I grew up. We had this game on PC, and the very iconic, the old fashioned. If anyone in the UK or Ireland probably remember the explosive like XPL, OSIV, and Extravision, all these places. That sort of old packaging, like it's very nostalgic, very iconic. Um, and that's really it's the music, the visuals, and this is the thing. I'll this with Sonic, or I'll just end with this. I think the biggest tragedy of the entire series, the gameplay wise, was there was never a 3D Sonic game with that sort of retro style, that 32-bit style. They jumped from 16-bit to Sonic Adventure, which at the time had very good graphics. Even still, if in certain ways it looks good, but
Yeah, no, it certainly doesn't look bad
yeah, it's like for
from what I
1998. It's
played,
yeah,
anyways.
it's
Yeah.
I just wish that they had done that, because there's something I would love to explore. Well, a lot of early 3D games, and this actually leads into the final game, but those early 3D graphics are very, if they're done right, I think it lends well with Sonic because it's already so cartoony and angular. But I definitely think there's something there that you don't get with the more modern stuff. So you know, That's really all I can say. That one's a little more wishy washy, I'll admit, but it's very heavy on the nostalgia and the memories and
Look,
the.
there's no wishy washiness. There's no prerequisites for this list. It's just
It's just
whatever,
pure
whatever.
love. It's what the heart,
Yeah.
you know.
Where your
It
heart
isn't. It
guides
isn't
you.
the Sonic game that you remember. It's the one your heart always knew it to be. I nicked that from the. That's not my line. It's from the GameSpot Final Fantasy VII remake review. But again, I've
No.
just dated this
Yeah.
podcast. Right, I'll move on to you before this gets even more awkward.
Yes. So the fourth or penultimate game on my list
Ooh, fancy.
is Pokemon Pearl slash Pokemon Platinum.
Jesus Christ. Can't
What?
stand Pokemon. No, I'm actually joking. I've never played a Pokemon game. I played Pearl for like
Yeah.
5 hours and I was like, ah.
So my story with this is when I was a kid, I loved watching the cartoon or anime as some might call it, as the weebs might call it.
The weebs. I was a
So
Yu-Gi-Oh guy, I guess. So
yeah, well you
contrarian.
are a weeb, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, so yeah, so I used to watch the anime as a kid, and I never liked the games. I could never get into them. I remember I had Pokemon Blue on the Game Boy Color, and it used to be in the drawer where we kept all of our crisps. And crisps, for any of the Americans listening, are your
Potato
version of
chips.
chips, potato chips. So it was always there. And I remember my cousins used to play it, not my cousin Ada, and different cousins. So I remember my cousins used to play it. And I just never could get into it, even though I loved the cartoon. And then this is when my cousin Ado comes back into it. So I went to his house one day and he was playing Pokemon Diamond. And he was like, Adam, this game is unbelievable. Seriously, you have to play it. And he showed me a save file. He had like 125 hours in the game. Which I mean, fair enough, it was a great game. Well, actually, loads of people think Diamond and Pearl are pretty average, but then Platinum fixed a lot with it, which it definitely did. But so that's how I got introduced to this game. He was like, "Oh yeah, it's really good." I was like, "No, Pokemon's crap, real crap. I don't want to play that." Then eventually he convinced me, and I got Pokemon Pearl, and I remember just playing it, and I I honestly can't think of a game from like that era. Like say, when did that game come out? Maybe 2000 and
2004, 5 is it? I could be
maybe I don't
completely
know.
wrong. It's all just
Yeah,
blurred
like
together for me.
it's around. It's from 2000 to 2010, so it was around there somewhere.
Oh, it might be 22. Yeah,
So
I'll check.
yeah, you check there. So I remember when I got the game, and from that time in my life, I can't remember putting that much time into a game in such a short amount of time, like a short space of time. I I beat the game really quickly, and like
2006, just for.
2006, yeah, I had a feeling it was there.
Hmm.
So I beat the game really quickly, and then I quickly got to like 80 or 100 hours in the game, and then I realized why my cousin was so into the game, and then that kind of spawned a love of Pokemon that I never really had, and I still have to this day. But I think like Heart Gold and Soul Silver came out, and they were absolutely fantastic. Like they're probably my favorite Pokemon games. But I think Pearl and Platinum kind of have a different spot in my heart. But from there, like I've played loads of the spin-offs and loads of the games, and I know so many Pokemon, and it's just such a great franchise. And that was the game that got me into it properly.
And
And
I have to say as well,
yeah,
you do have several videos on Pokemon, don't you? Or at least,
several. I have a single video on.
didn't you do the JRPG a month and everything?
Oh yeah, I did. I have two games.
Jeez, you don't even
Two.
remember your own videos. It's pathetic,
I
Adam.
have I have two videos on Pokemon. If you want to
What
go
are you
check them
doing?
out, it's called Pokemon Sword and Shield Doesn't Deserve the Hate and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Rescue Team DX uh, review one JRPG a month on the Switch, something like that. You'll find it when you
Jesus.
find my YouTube
This is
channel.
a sad showing, Adam. I just need to say
So
so.
yeah,
I've never.
go on.
I did play Pearl when we were on holiday in Turkey once, and we on an R4 card, and it. I actually got really addicted to it. It was a lot of fun, but again, I only played for like 6 hours. Something I'm done with this. I should. I
Yeah.
actually have the new ones, Pokemon Shield, and
Oh, do you actually?
yeah, yeah, I got it for
Oh,
Christmas. I've just
I
never.
tried. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Well, that's
I tried mine
anticlimactic.
in. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it just kind of spawned a love of Pokemon that got me into the franchise, and then I went back and played. I remember in America in GameStop they sold Game Boy games, and I was amazed by it. So I bought Leaf Green and Ruby, I think, and played them. And then I just kind of played all of them mostly up until Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon and Sword and Shield, and then in recent years it's just kind of been I'll play them for 20 hours, think they're good, and then never finish them.
Yeah, they start
So
to
I think
blur
I've
together from what I've
yeah, yeah,
heard.
I think either it's just because they haven't fixed the formula or haven't upgraded the formula, or it's just I've just grown out of them, which it's
Mm.
more than likely I just grown out of them. So they were good games. They still are. Sword and Shield are still okay games, but
Yeah,
that's
there's definitely something. It's a very interesting sort of franchise and sort of multimedia empire. It's
the largest multimedia franchise in the world.
yeah, again, it's just so weird that I missed out on a lot of these. Not missed out, like
Yeah,
I came into I watched the anime and all. We had the first two volumes of VHS or whatever, but we just seem to have ducked into the most to always the sort of the Pepsis as opposed to Coke. You know, we to the Sega and the Yu-Gi-Oh and the sort of the Sonic and the well, Sonic was obviously way
the
bigger.
chef ketchup over
The Chef
Heinz and
Ketchup, yeah, yeah. The
cheese popcorn over non-cheese popcorn. The list goes on and on, David. I don't know why we're even friends. Do you know what? This is the end. Goodbye.
this is it. It's all
Yeah,
cancelled.
it's
Playback is cancelled.
cancelled. Okay, back on
Exhale
track.
strongly.
David, your
Okay,
final game.
the
I'd
final game.
say yes.
I wonder if you can even guess this, but you probably
I.
can.
What platform is it on?
PC.
Half Life.
You are correct. Specifically the original, not the remake. Um,
Mm,
Nothing wrong with the remake. I played it when it
the
was in early
original
access.
with without the HD texture pack,
Without the
and
HD res, yeah.
you have to play it on Windows 2000 and
Windows
use a
ME.
trackball mouse and
Yeah, no, it's okay. So joking aside, though, Half Life One. This is actually the easiest game, but like by far to play. By the way, because it's like 2 cent on Steam and it runs on a cardboard
oh
box
no,
and everything.
you gifted it to me. I have
Yeah,
it.
I
I
did.
actually
Yeah,
downloaded
yeah.
it. I
Still
just
waiting.
haven't
Yeah,
played it yet.
yeah.
I'll
As
do
well
a
as like
video on that. Go to my YouTube channel, Adzy Gaming.
yes, absolutely. We should do a call. Yeah, but uh, Half Life is probably out of the five, the Sonic or Resident Evil 4, Dark Souls, Crash 3, Half Life, debatably the most influential out of the five. Resident Evil 4 and Dark Souls are probably,
Yeah, I'd
close,
say
but I'd say Half
you
Life.
could. Yeah, you could probably make an argument for Dark Souls being, uh,
But that's more like it's created more of
yeah, a
a
genre that
subject,
rather
yeah.
than
Whereas Half Life
yeah,
is like a seismic. For anyone who isn't aware, and this one there probably are more people if you're more console centric, you won't fully appreciate this. But before, when Half Life came out, a lot of first Half Life's first person shooter, of course, made by Valve, uh, who of course totally sold out with Steam. So
they didn't sell out. They're just geniuses
they
that are
just
making
stopped care.
millions.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but where's the passion, bro? Uh,
David, if someone turned around and said, "Look, yous can do some stuff that isn't making a podcast, even though this is our first ever episode, and we'll give you millions of dollars, but you can never make another podcast," I'm taking the millions.
I'd probably sell out in like 2 seconds. Yeah,
Oh
but
yeah, 100%.
oh
But
no, yeah, it's just so when they made the first Half Life, Valve was originally made by people who worked at Microsoft, Gabe Newell, Lord Gaben and all. And when Half Life came out, before Half Life came out, a lot of first person shooters were like called Doom clones. They're like Doom or Quake, where it's very run and gun, very arcadey, running around blowing stuff up. Half Life is a lot more slow paced, especially at the start. It's slow paced and it's more story focused. It's very famous for not necessarily its story, but the way it tells its story. Because the story is pretty much just a glorified version of Doom's story. It has one of the most iconic openings of any video game ever made, with the experiment going wrong. But it's it's the thing about Half Life that it's different from the other games is that if you judge it in a modern context, the game's not very good.
yeah,
If it just came out today, you probably would have a hard time recommending it because it's so influential that so many games afterward took what it did and improved upon it, as opposed to, like, let's say Dark Souls or Resident Evil 4. Like, you obviously can move and shoot and some of the third person, but in a lot of ways they still hold up really well because they did everything so well at the time that. Uh, See, I don't mean to make this sound like Half Life's not good because it's a fantastic game today, and the way the remake critically and commercially is doing so well, the fan remake is obviously proof that it's a quality game. But what I'm trying to get at is that the mechanics of Half-Life, the way it tells its story, because it's so influential, the way most shooters operate now or did for a very long time, it's so it's just a juggernaut of a game, and it's the way it tells its story. It's a lot more show don't tell. You can go into it taking as much of the story in as you want, or the gunplay.
Wait. Can I
Yeah.
just about the story? I know obviously this isn't a discussion about the games itself,
Oh no, I'm
but are you
absolutely.
no, are you talking about the story kind of molded what Call of Duty and Medal of Honor and things like that would
I think.
become?
Well, yeah, I think it started the trend that ultimately taken to their extreme or taking. They
Yeah. You
would
turn to
were
shit.
Yeah, and by the way, I just want to say as well, I think I sometimes really love sitting down and playing a mindless. Well, not mindless. Again, I don't want to be mean spirited about it, but I think there is a place for that type of follow the objective, just do what the game tells you. Sometimes that's just what you
Yeah,
want to do, but and Half Life is way more way more open ended in that sense, where sometimes you even need a guide to know where to go. It's definitely like it's from 1998. So in some aspects, it does first person platforming. There is definitely aspects to it that are very 1998. Um, so it's taken it's since been eclipsed, I think, by its sequel, and all the sort of the hype around sort of the sort of story surrounding like the meta, like the outside real world story of Half Life and the Half Life 3 and all that. I never When I first played Half Life 2, I remember hating it, like really hating it, because it wasn't like Half Life 1. That's another thing. It's like with Resident Evil 5 to 4. If you played 2, and I know, Adam, I think you're one of those people, if you played 2 and didn't like it and it puts you off 1, 1 is a totally different game. I hated 2 when I first played because it wasn't like 1 until after a while, I went back to 2 and I understood that
yeah.
what it was trying
I,
to
I
do
wouldn't
as
I
opposed to
wouldn't say
1.
I hate. Yeah,
It
but I
didn't click
wouldn't
with you.
say I hate to. It's just
Do you want to hear another
it's
gulp of water? You ready?
yeah. Go on. Yeah, go on. Lovely. Oh, that was on sync. But I think the thing that got me with Half Life Two was that I've kind of gotten. I think when I played it, I was fed up of that kind of you know. Oh, you're gonna have a 25-minute opening cutscene where they're gonna show an
Yeah.
explosion and
Again,
then
like
you're
with
gonna pick up your
Half-Life
gun.
2,
It's like,
yeah, it's funny to think back that that's the game that really started that, in the sense that, like, if because Half-Life 2 is from 2004, and obviously with the source physics and engine and all, it was very technologically revolutionary, but they kind of gave up. The thing about Half-Life 2 is they kind of gave up on the shooter part. It was more about a first-person adventure game. And obviously, it's a first-person shooter, but the gunplay kind of sucks in Half-Life 2, in my opinion, anyways. And it's more about the story and the characters and the experience of it, whereas Half-Life 1 is still very much focused on gunplay. And again, some people,
yeah,
the gunplay isn't anything super special. I wouldn't go there specifically for the game, but it's more the way it melds its story. It's quite a long game, so it's like 20 hours long. Um, and like with Resident Evil 4, it's all
wait.
connected,
Half Life One is 20 hours long.
something like that, on your first playthrough.
Oh,
If you know
good
what you're doing, you
Jesus,
can
no.
get it in like
Oh
7 or 8 hours.
no,
Yeah.
David. I don't think you. Do you know what? You talking about this game has
Go on.
never made me want to play the game less, or has never dissuaded me more from
Why?
playing
Why?
the game. If that,
Why? What's the hang up?
well, you just said you were just going on about how you know. Well, if you play Half
The
Life
fact.
One and you
Oh
take
no,
it in
no,
the
no, no,
modern
no, no.
context, it's
Sorry. That's like what I was saying earlier, though. But if you the fact that that's the case is like a testament to its quality because it's so influential in that sense. Like if you took the exact 1998 game, completely unchanged, and just it was a new game releasing today, not called Half Life, but a game exactly like Half Life, not like the remake, but it would
hmm,
just be like, oh, you know, I probably haven't explained that as appropriately as I should have. It's like you simply just need to. play it to understand. It's a very important game, and it's historic. It sort of transcends the other 4 games on the list because it's just a tour de force. And also, and this is the biggest thing, I really like the graphics. And this is the weird thing because it's very blocky, sort of late 90s. But like with Sonic Or and all, there's something really, I think, nostalgic and cool about the graphics. It's a so I think it's based on the Quake engine, and it's famous as well for the modding community. Valve's always been great with the mods.
Yeah.
They Hunger, great one you should all play. Obviously, Counter Strike was a mod. Team Fortress was a mod. Day Defeat was a mod. A lot of the stuff that we take for granted today are all Half Life mods. So or start out as Half Life mods. So all I can say is that, and of course, with what the meaning to me, why I care about it so much is I played it very similarly with Sonic Or. We played it when we were really small. I was using the arrow keys and everything like a doofus. Um, and it's you just the memories of it and the expansion packs are all great. Like it's just such a. I'm actually really crestfallen now that I think I may have sabotaged. I think what I'm happy to say is I don't think I'm blowing sand up anyone's backside. Like I'm being honest, where I'm really want you to.
Yeah.
It's I don't want to. Or it's definitely it's a game from
It's the best
1998.
shooter ever made.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely think it stands up perfectly well today, but it is from 1998. Especially the last quarter of the game where you go to the alien world, very infamous because of the first person platform and the weird gravity. That is where it starts to kind of suck a bit. Um, but the first third, the pacing is so it starts off very slow. It's more like a survival horror game, but then it turns into more of an exploration game. So it's you're going to new locations. Then in the third quarter, it's more like a full on shooter. You're fighting the military. It's just the pacing is great. It's like what Resident Evil 4 with the pacing. There's so much unique level design. Everything is you're constantly doing something different. I just think with the last quarter, which I will be telling you does kind of suck. Um, to the point where you should almost would half consider just stopping after the first 2 alien levels and then just watching the rest on YouTube or just watch the ending. Um, I'm being totally
Even more incentive to play the game.
yeah no, you really should play. I'm just see, I respect the game so much that I'm willing to talk about it on such a primordial, critical level. Like that's really discuss this. But yeah, that's the one I probably have the most complex feel. Most you could really let's discuss this um game. But Adam, if you don't play it, your ass is grass because you're really like this is
Maybe look.
that's a travesty if you don't play it. Like that's a travesty. A
One day,
travesty. Not a
one day I'll play it.
catastrophe, a travesty, which is on another
One
level.
day, one day.
I'm actually upset now at the thought that
But
you won't play it.
that day won't be anytime soon. Especially since you just told me that it's 20 hours long.
Well, no, hang
Um,
on. Sorry, hang on. Okay, let's park in reverse here. Or yeah, it's the Americans, isn't it?
yeah, park and then
So
reverse.
clutch it. So on your first playthrough, might be around that. But if you know what you're doing, it's like six. Well, no, it wouldn't be that short. So around 10 hours maybe. You definitely get your money's worth. But I don't see
And
you could love it. Sorry, I have to. I actually
yeah,
can't believe that that's your
like
reason for not wanting to play.
I'm sure. Me saying, "Oh, it's 20 hours long," is probably people thinking, "Oh, he just can't keep his attention, and he doesn't understand things." But
You might love
there's
it. You might
one.
be sad that it's not longer. I'm not.
I
I
don't
think
think so.
it's.
I don't think. I seriously don't think any FPS has any notion or any right to be more than 20 hours long.
Unless
If
it's
it's a
like a
pure
Far Cry or something where it's that type of
yeah, if
open
it's
world.
like an open world, like at least with Far Cry, like you could probably beat Far Cry 3 in like 12 or 15 hours
Yeah,
if you just mainline the story. But like you just have to look like how many other first person shooters are over 20 hours long.
in the modern age. No,
Well, just full stop.
well, I'd
Like
say
Doom, like
Doom Eternal. Well,
Doom
I haven't.
One,
Yeah, those. But
yeah,
yeah,
Doom Eternal. I don't even think Doom Eternal takes over 20 hours. It might maybe. maybe over 20 hours, but I think it's less than 20.
Yeah.
Same with Doom
No,
2016.
well,
Same with
here's what okay.
Wolfenstein.
Well, I'd suggest then here's the sort of counter. There were 2 expansion packs for Half-Life. There was Blue Shift and Opposing Force. Opposing Force is like 8 hours long. In fact, some people prefer Opposing Force might actually replace one of the soldiers sent to purge the research facility. Opposing Force might actually be the best expansion pack or DLC. Well, it's not the 19, obviously not DLC back then, but expansion pack ever
Yeah,
made.
expansion pack.
Very, very possibly the best one ever made.
Oh, ho, ho, ho. That's a
Um,
big.
or at least
That's
for a
a
first
big.
person shooter. Um, so it's like 8 hours long. Or if you are so desperately afraid of committing to a game that's slightly longer than a Call of Duty campaign, um,
Oh, that's
Blue
how it's
Shift
gonna be, is it?
Blue Shift is like 2 hours long. That gives you now I like Blue Shift is great and all, but it's 2 hours long. It's a very nice, like, quick, you want to sit down and
Yeah,
just run around in Half-Life world for
just bang it out and you're done.
yeah. So if that'd be a good one to start. I just that's the one out of the 5 where I'm like, you really one day, or even the remake. I haven't played it yet, but the Black Mesa Sword remake, especially with
Yeah,
Half-Life
well,
Alex, like
that's like that's been trending on Steam for a while, so I
yeah.
imagine loads of people are buying it.
So, I really want to see that. Sorry, this has gotten a little off topic, but this is the one I'm more. I've realized I'm most emotionally like. I can't believe this would. Oh God, sorry. This will have to be an episode later on. A
Yeah, will.
debate.
So
We'll give each other games to play.
yeah, that's your final game done, David.
Yeah. For
So
now, for as in
yeah,
like
no, ever, you're never allowed to play
ever,
one ever
ever,
again.
never
That's
allowed to
it,
play
just done.
ever
Yeah.
again.
So I was between. I have two written down here.
Okay, can I guess what I think the two are? Unless you want to do a
Okay,
big intro
so
thing. I'm sorry, I don't want to
no.
steal your
So I'll
thunder.
just say that one of them is my kind of introduction, or not even my introduction, but kind of the thing that properly got me into competitive online gaming, or the
Okay.
indie game that got me into, say, like PC and indie gaming.
Oh, I know them. I think I know the two of them. But I will.
I highly doubt you have the indie one, but go on.
Is it Terraria?
No.
Ah. Oh no. Is it Binding of Isaac?
Yes, it is.
Ah, yes.
And
I'm
what would you say is the
invincible.
multiplayer one?
Hmm. It's either Rocket League or Overwatch.
One of them two.
Rocket League.
Yeah, but
Yes.
I've decided. I've decided that Binding of Isaac is the one that I'm going to talk about.
Right.
Uh, Obviously, Binding of Isaac Rebirth, better game, way better. Everything. It's just a 100% improved version of the original game. But the original Binding of Isaac was the one I'm going to talk about. So
It did all the heavy lifting at the start.
yeah. So I think it was in 2009 or 10 I started to get into PC gaming, and I was so far up a PC's arse that like I didn't pay attention to PlayStation. I think I had still played my DS, and eventually I got a 3DS. I didn't get a Vita or anything, so I didn't care. It was either a Nintendo handheld and PC. So I got my PC, and I started off with the usual, downloading TF2 and playing that, and buying Oblivion, which I already played, and stuff like that. But then I started to get into YouTube really big in 2010, and obviously Minecraft, Terraria, games like that. But then I stumbled across this lad called Total Biscuit. May he rest in peace. But he was easily my favorite YouTuber I've ever watched, without a shadow of a doubt, and he probably still is. And he really loved showcasing indie games, and me watching his channel really opened my eyes to just a whole new just realm of games that I just never even heard of. So there was obviously games like Braid and things like that, but eventually I remember seeing a video about the Binding of Isaac, and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. It was about this little kid that shot tears from his eyes, who was naked, and he was running away from his mom in a basement, who was told by God to kill him. It's all very like, and it's like a commentary on like against religion, and well,
Like
you know
extremist,
that's
like
how. Yeah,
fundamentalist. Christianity. Not
That's
my.
that's how I interpret it in any ways, but it's very biblical, and
Hmm.
obviously the character's name's Isaac, and all the other characters are Abel, and I'm trying to think.
Cain or whoever.
Yeah. There's loads of religious iconography stuff in it. So I remember playing that game, and as I said, it just opened my eyes to a whole new world, and like that's why it's on the list. And it also introduced me to arguably my favorite genre of any my favorite genre in gaming, and that's rogue light games. I make the distinction light instead of
As
like,
opposed to like.
because obviously I remember specifically Total Biscuit talked about this a lot. That rogue like games are games that are like Rogue, and rogue light games are games that are like Rogue but have other elements to them as well. It's not completely like Rogue where it's turn based and things like that. So from then on, I've played a crazy amount of roguelites, like
Rogue
all the ones
Legacy
that
and all these
everyone's
guys. The
like.
one thing
What?
I Rogue Legacy.
Yeah, Rogue Legacy,
You
Nuclear
should play
Throne.
Castlevania Harmony of Despair.
Yeah, I
That
will
is,
get around to
yeah.
that
I
sometime.
think it's on PS now.
But yeah, so and then that game also introduced me to Northern Lion, who is the Binding of Isaac machine, who does thousands of episodes, or who has done thousands of episodes for both games, and he does a lot of roguelites. But yeah, the main reason why I put that on my list is just mainly because of how it kind of introduced me to indie games, and it also introduced me to roguelites. And like I have played all the big ones since, like Dead Cells and Flint Hook, and I've kind of fell off it recently, but I've played a lot of them, and it's an absolutely fantastic genre of games, and I'd probably say my favorite. So
Yeah, it's
yeah.
it's a very, I was gonna say an exhausting show. That's a weird way of putting it. It's a
Oh
very
no, 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 no! It 100% is, and absolutely, like, every single roguelite that I've played, you could easily put 200 hours into.
yeah. I mean, I put in like 150 hours into Harmony of Despair just to get one sword that I never got, because
Yeah.
that is a great game. Well, it's it's like the 2D Castlevanias, but you're in a different castles, and obviously you start off with
Mm,
really crappy, and
yeah.
it's
And
really.
obviously, yeah, I think Isaac kind of, it was like, it was said that it was kind of modeled after the original Zelda game and how the
Yeah,
dungeons
the,
were,
sort of
and
the
you,
overview and everything.
yeah, yeah, and you could really see that. So I'd say that's probably played into it as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a great game. The best way to play it is on the Switch as well.
Hmm.
So that's the
I think
games
that's,
that
yeah,
defined us.
yeah,
That's
or
that.
at least
That's a
games
wrap.
that have some serious like
Yes, yeah, some
like
significance in there. Obviously,
synonymous in our minds with when people ask us
yeah,
about those games that we think had an impact.
obviously we could sit here and talk for another 3 hours, but I can already feel my
Oh,
voice going,
yeah, I can only imagine.
and I also don't want to bore people by talking for three
Stealing
hours.
too much of their time. At least not
Yeah,
yet,
we respect your time for now. Haha.
for now.
So that's been David.
So
Do you
with
have
that,
any closing thoughts?
all I have to say is this this sort of wasn't as disastrous as I thought it would be.
No, no. It. I hope
It
it
started
sounds
off
okay.
pretty
Yeah.
dicey, but I think we pulled it together, and I kind of feel like I've let down Half Life a bit. But well,
Look, you'll be able to defend it in the
I am
video,
a
or in
mature
the,
adult. I am not a
yeah.
child. That's why I'm talking about it like this, treating it like
Yes.
the
So
artwork that it is. So yeah, I'll leave your outro to you, as I currently don't have an online presence, but I'm
yeah,
stay
David is
tuned
working on his video. So
on my
that has been the first ever episode of the Playback podcast. So
Slán
I
Lath,
have been Adam.
and I have
You can
been
find me. You can find me on
interrupted.
YouTube. Yeah, well, look, I have to plug myself, man.
You do, yeah.
So you can find me on YouTube at Adzi, ADZI Space Gaming. I do retrospectives and reviews and the likes, kind of a few video essays every now and again when I feel it.
My beloved video
You can follow
essay.
me on Twitter at Adzi, ADZIYT. And that's all my plugs. David, do you want to be found anywhere yet, or have you created any?
As I very carefully sort of mold this online persona to be as marketable and sort of brand friendly as possible, I think it's best if I lay low for now, but stay tuned at this spot. I'm just going to coast off
Yeah,
Adam for the time being.
yeah. Well, my 127 subscribers will
Yeah,
be all over your channel, David, when it happens. So, I really appreciate you all listening. I hope you enjoyed.
thanks very much for listening and
Subscribe to whatever.
subscribe.
Subscribe to us on whatever you're listening to us. We're going to try to get this on everything imaginable.
Yeah,
So we'll see how it goes. Thank you all for watching.
see you.
Bye.